Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is an amazing PlayStation 5 showcase, a prime example of why we should want PlayStation 5 exclusives that cannot run on older hardware. Not only because of the constant beauty that made my OLED TV instantly worth it, but also because of the near seamless change of planets and environments while exploring or during some of the boss fights that left me incredibly impressed. But still, as a longtime Ratchet fan who played all the games over the years, yes, even the tower defense game Q-Force, I can't help but feel a bit disappointed. And I will tell you why in this review. I'm on my way to the Platinum Trophy now, need a few more collectibles, so I've seen almost everything the game has to offer. A like on the video would of course really help me out. And let's go. Rift Apart once again shows that Sony got something special with the DualSense controller. You can really compare it to Astro's Playroom, which is still incredibly rare for a full price game these days. You feel it when the surface changes under Ratchet's feet and get realistic feedback when grinding or especially when doing the wall running. And some of the weapons make brilliant use of the controller as well. They sometimes need to be charged up before you can use them, and by holding R2 halfway you can already prepare the attack and then unleash it at the right time, which creates a fun new tactic. Throwable weapons let you aim by hitting the trigger halfway, and then if you want to throw them, you press R2 further, or with a sniper you can zoom in by hitting L2 halfway and slow down time by fully pressing L2. Still though, the first two weapons you can buy have the most interesting uses. Here it completely alters your fire depending on how you press the trigger. So not a lot of guns use this, but it's still a fun feature nevertheless. You will mostly see the 30 FPS fidelity mode, by the way. If it's the 60 FPS performance ray tracing mode, I will let you know in the corner. This is also recorded during New Game Plus. But yeah, the 60 frames per second mode has only been available for a short time and requires you to download a day 1 patch if you got the physical copy of the game. It's not that big though. And just like in Spider-Man, you have a performance ray tracing mode and a regular performance mode, which increases the resolution, but of course doesn't have the reflections. And really on a big 4K OLED TV, you will totally notice the loss of graphical quality in exchange for the 60 FPS. When playing on a monitor though, it felt like less of an issue. Still though, as in most cases, 60 frames per second is totally worth it. Especially the new dash feels made for this higher frame rate mode. At first, it did not seem like a big deal, but being able to become invisible for a short time and go through lasers from the enemies is really huge. And as a veteran Ratchet player, it took me way too long to get used to this move, but the game can be really punishing if you stick to the old ways. I was, by the way, pleasantly surprised by the difficulty when playing on hard, and there's even a difficulty level above that for if you truly want to test yourself. I mean, thanks to the fast load times, you will be back into the action incredibly fast after you die. No, but sometimes I feel that Insomniac games suffer from a lack of challenge, but in Rift Apart, I found myself pushed to use the right tactics very often, which made some of the amazing boss fights even more memorable. But yeah, like I said in the intro, I'm still a bit disappointed, and that's mostly because of the lack of evolution compared to the previous games. Don't get me wrong, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is still a great adventure. Ratchet & Clank haven't been on a journey in a while, when Clank in the opening level shows the Dimensionator, which should help Ratchet find the other Lombaxes. Dr. Nefarious shows up, things go sideways, you likely already saw this in the gameplay reveal, right? And now Ratchet is sent to another dimension where he finds Rivet. And you actually end up playing her for half of the game as well, and I think she's great. She's snarky, has a good sense of humor, gives Clank a nickname immediately, but the narrative and story gets one-dimensional real fast. The first half of the game, or even like 2/3 of the game, you're trying to rebuild this Dimensionator, but you go to a planet, you find a part, you figure out, oh, I need more parts, so you go to another planet, and Ratchet is doing the same. I just did not connect with the early supporting characters that just don't add too much to the adventure and are just there to give you activities. This all changes though in the final few levels, like everything comes together near the end and gets way more exciting. No spoilers of course, like the final part of the game is the best part overall, but to get there you need to go through a middle section that just drags on for too long. While building the Dimensionator, you are hunted by Nefarious and will be greeted by videos of him putting a bounty on your head. It's really the old school Ratchet and Clank stuff that we've seen many times already, and I expected something less familiar after 9 mainline games in the series. But usually in a Ratchet game, this doesn't matter that much because of the addictive gameplay, destroying everything in your path. You see the bolts fly your way and you know you can exchange them for more firepower. That gameplay loop always grabbed me and kept me excited, but Rift Apart is lacking a few key elements for me that kept me engaged. For one, the arsenal in this Ratchet and Clank is not as strong as in the previous titles. The cool DualSense feature for a handful of guns cannot help the fact that they are missing the humor or inventiveness that we've seen before. I miss a Sheepinator type weapon during the main campaign that of course turns all the enemies into a sheep, or a Mr. Sircon that throws out one corny one-liner after the other. The weapons in Rift Apart are mostly made to kill, with almost no funny twist to them. Sure, you got these rocket ducks that home in on the targets, but in the end it's nothing more than a rocket launcher. I just miss seeing the enemies bring out their crazy dance moves after throwing the Groovatron. Now we got a sprinkler that stuns the enemies in place. It's still useful, but just not funny. The coolest weapon in the game is the Rhyno 8, which I can't show in action, but they did post a video of it on Twitter. Like, this gun is crazy, throws objects from different dimensions on your enemies, even from different PlayStation universes. Like, that is amazing, but the sad part is that you get this gun at the end of the game. So you can only really use it if you decide to play through the game again in New Game Plus, which is really such a shame. It is cool that they're bringing back some old favorites like the Pixelizer in the New Game Plus modes, but again, I wish in the new arsenal we would see some crazy weaponry as well, because now it's only really for people who will be going through the game again. It's still fun to use these weapons, don't get me wrong, especially once you are near the end of the game, when you can combine everything, which is really needed on the harder difficulties, and thanks to the DualSense controller, they feel awesome to use as well. But the lack of funny, over-the-top weapons makes it less exciting to go to a new planet to see which weapon is for sale, because yeah, it's likely not a cool weapon anyways. It is cool that every planet feels like its own contained story though, like an episode out of a TV show. There is also way more life on these planets compared to the previous games. The aliens are working or need your help solving their particular problems. It feels that everything is serving a purpose. The world building in this Ratchet and Clank is really cool, and you're just visiting these locations in the hope to find your objective, which makes the galaxy way more believable. And some planets have multiple versions too. The mine you reach for the first time has been destroyed, but by simply hitting a crystal, you are teleported to the other dimension where this planet is still intact. And it's not only technically impressive, but they also use it in fun gameplay ways. While overall platforming has taken a back seat in Rift Apart, there are these pocket dimensions that serve as easy but fun little platforming puzzles, and Clank has its own segment of course too, that really delivers. There's totally a lot of variety in the gameplay. I just wish I could say the same about the enemies. You're almost constantly fighting the same enemies during your 10 to 12 hour journey. Again, I played on hard, it took me 12 hours to complete the campaign with quite a lot of side content. I think it is close to 20 hours for the platinum, maybe less if you like really rush through it. No, but it's sad that most of the enemies you encounter are from two factions. The army from Nefarious, so the security type robots, and the pirates. They come in different archetypes, but the roster is really slim for this combat heavy game. And both factions have only one mini boss style enemy, and the first time you encounter them it's really exciting, but when they show up for the 5th, 6th time with the same abilities, you really wish they'd spend more resources in enemy variety. Not to mention that if you played Ratchet and Clank 2016 recently, because it was of course free, then you will notice a lot of familiar wildlife that is now also in Rift Apart. Which can be fine, but it does kinda suck if the enemy variety is already really limited. Like the lack of extra factions that could have been pulled out of other dimensions also hurts the structure. You will very soon realize that the factions are just alternating. Killed a lot of the various robots. Okay, the next planet will have pirates. and then later on they introduce a new sort of faction, which is just a different type of goon that you also already killed before. While going back to the PS4 game, I also upgraded some weapons, which by the way, the same system that we see in Rift Apart. Like, you really see that they focused on making a PlayStation 5 showpiece title, which is fine. Makes sense, close to the release of the console. But if you were looking for the next evolution of the Ratchet and Clank formula, something that I expected from the first full price game after a crack in time, well, you will not find it here, sadly. I still had a lot of fun, especially near the end, and the arena is actually one of the best versions of any Ratchet game. So I can still recommend the game, just keep in mind that it's mostly just a showcase, launch title type of experience, and not what I hoped from a new full price mainline Ratchet game after almost 11 years. I will have another Ratchet video up very soon, so totally subscribe and keep it locked for that, for more reviews, more E3 coverage. We're of course close to that. A like on the video would really help me out. And if that other Ratchet video is already up, you can watch it by clicking on the screen. For now, I will speak to you next time, and goodbye.